Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our monthly health condition workshop. My name is Bev Wood, and tonight's workshop is going to be on bunions, and we're really excited. Well, I guess we're half excited because we were going to have Denise Morgan and Tiffany Hodges, who work together. They were both going to come tonight and present, but unfortunately, Tiffany couldn't make it. So Denise is going to take the show. Denise is a licensed massage therapist and has worked quite a bit with bunions. So we're really excited about having her here. And so I think it's time. I'm going to turn it over to you, Denise.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to be stretching the material that I have, and I'm going to make time for question and answers at the end of my presentation here. As Bev said, I'm a licensed massage therapist. I'm also a certified yoga instructor. Throughout my career, I have worked with clients with a variety of conditions, including bunions. I've worked with clients experiencing different stages of bunions, from just starting to post-surgery. So the standard protocol in massage is to work the compensation pattern that's creating the bunion. So that's the focus that I'm going to bring to this presentation today. We're going to talk about a couple different things. When I use the term compensation pattern, I'm specifically talking about the body's posture and how we move in that posture. Proper posture and body mechanics. Conserve energy. Sorry, I'm going to just read it from here. Conserve energy and limit strain and fatigue in the body. So when we have correct posture, our weight is stacked onto our bones. It's very efficient, and the body doesn't have to do a lot of extra work. So our internal muscle tone is balanced. Chronic muscle tension starts to pull our weight off of that support. And now we have extra energy that's going towards chronically tight muscles and extra energy to keep those muscles contracted. So we get a strain and counter strain pattern, and our body is trying to pull that weight back on as close to the skeleton as it can, because that's the most efficient posture. The body, like everything else in nature, is made to be efficient. So its default state is efficiency and relaxation. Once we start developing these compensation patterns, now our movement is completely changed. So the angles of our movement, our posture, and our muscles and our skeleton really work on a lever and pulley system. So now all of those angles are shifted. We're using different parts of the muscle fiber in the body of the muscle itself to perform the same actions. So we're getting a lot of pressure, strain, and wear on the joints in places that it's not supposed to be. So it's just like the alignment in your car. Your wheels are going to rub in all different places, and it's not going to be beneficial. Over time, it's going to create more serious issues. So what keeps our muscles tight? Well, plenty, right? So first, let's start with our autonomic nervous system. It consists of two commonly known systems that work without our conscious effort. So we've got our fight or flight and rest and digest. And we've all heard this. It's pretty common, these terms. So once the body's determined that there's real danger, perceived or real, the sympathetic nervous system responds by increasing our heart rate, our breathing, and signaling to our skeletal muscles to tense for running or fighting. Okay? So by a show of hands, how many of you know what that feels like in your body? Yes? Good. Okay. So here we are. We have these tense muscles that are unconsciously activated, and we're already stressed, so we're thinking about our focus on something completely different. So we can feel the effect of the muscle tension consciously, but there's not a really good connection. So releasing this response isn't as obvious as if I want to bend my arm and then straighten it. Like, I know that that muscle is contracted and now it's relaxed. So this becomes a problem when we don't give our parasympathetic nervous system time to complete that process. So maybe our mind and our thoughts are still on the stimulus that created that fight or flight response. And so there's this like delicate dance between how our body is going to receive balance from that place back into our rest and digest system. So another question, let's see. By a show of hands, how many of you are conscious of when your rest and digest response happens? Okay. How many of you are more conscious of your fight or flight versus your rest and digest?
Good question.
Like we know the whole time that we're stressed. Like we know the whole period. But do we really have a good concept of how long it takes for us to start and finish our relaxation cycle? So think about that as I talk about the next part in the nervous system that creates conditioning. So our bodies are programmed to learn. Repetition is reinforced in the body and the brain through the somatic nervous system. So this is called neurological memory or muscle memory. Over time, a path is created in the brain and the nervous system called the nerve track. Once a nerve track is established in the body, it tends to respond predictably, just like a reflex. So in essence, a nerve track can be thought of as a conscious reflex or conditioning, right? So when we learn to ride a bike, we are coordinating balance, we're coordinating muscles, we're getting over our fear of falling and getting hurt. So when we start out with that, it's a very conscious effort. And maybe we're focused on like 3 things. So we're riding our bike, and we notice over time that we don't have to focus on those 3 things as much. And so the next time we have that, our body has that down, now we're focused on like the next 3 things. And then that gets to be, without thinking. And then we focus on the next 3 things. And before you know it, we're doing like wheelies and all kinds of stuff. So that's a good example of how this system works. And it's a good thing too, because if we had to learn how to ride a bike every time, we would never experience riding a bike. We'd probably give up on it. So, all right, so the main context for the term nerve track is regarding to the skeletal muscles, but from my holistic perspective, I accept that any type of repetition can be considered for this process, whether it's emotional experiences, thoughts, physical stimulus, or movement. I believe our body is programmed to learn through repetition at all levels. So when we have negative thoughts that repeat over and over again, or when we change them, how do we do that? Through consistency with positive thoughts. So habit and practice. It's similar with emotions. So it's my belief and personal experience. So oftentimes we're not using our muscles to run away from a pack of wolves or to fight off an aggressor. So fight or flight programming has a different context when it comes to sitting at a computer with anxiety about giving a presentation. So how does that also affect our rest and digest response? It's my belief and personal experience that when we perform repetitive motion while our fight or flight response is activated, that those muscles are less likely to return to their starting length. So essentially, they kind of stay in fight or flight because our rest and digest is really kind of programmed into what muscles do I need to fight or run. And sometimes we're not fighting or running when we're stressed. Sometimes we're sitting slumped in bad posture. Sometimes we're arguing with somebody. So there's different muscles that are now included in that group that aren't necessarily being taken care of by the parasympathetic response. So now, let's see here, before I skip over anything else. So now there's good news and bad news. Our body is phenomenal at adapting. Sometimes it's a little sneaky about it as well. Or, maybe we just don't pay attention. But I generally find that an imbalance in the body will become normalized in 2 to 3 days. So not just compensated through body mechanics, but also normalized in the nervous system. So a signal that isn't responded to, the volume gets turned down, right? And then we say, oh, my hip hurt, and then it just went away after a couple days. So that's what I'm talking about here. And then once there's no more room for compensation, the body will start yelling. So there's certainly a window of opportunity for us to listen to the body and correct these imbalances, whether they be emotional, physical, or having to do with our state of mind. So our nervous system is constantly interpreting stimulus to keep us in balance with the environment, internally and externally. It does this through sensory receptors. So there's 2 groups. We have our special senses, such as our vision, hearing, equilibrium, taste, and smell. And then we also have general senses, such as pressure, temperature, pain, touch, vibration, movement, and position. So these general sensory receptors are implanted throughout all the tissues of our body: skin, tendons, ligaments, muscles, organs, cells, and fascia. So knowing how these receptors work and where they're located is key to facilitating lengthening and shortening of muscles, tendons, and ligaments. So the other half of this equation, and the bigger part, is fascia. Fascia anchors our skin. It surrounds and supports and shapes our muscles, bones, nerves, blood, organs, and cells. It's everywhere throughout the body, and it is made of collagen. So it can be tough and pliable, providing movement and structural integrity. So depending on its chemical consistency, it can be like pantyhose or even like shrink wrap. So think about those things in your mind. In the early stages of compensation, after the chronically tense muscle pattern is released, the adhesion in the fascia can be broken up by movement. So what this basically means is you can have muscle tension and fascial tension. And the fascial tension kind of comes in support and aid of the muscle tension. The muscle is fatigued, it's strained, and the fascia comes and just kind of helps to release that chronic fatigue. So how many of us focus on releasing our chronic muscle tension?
Focus on.
Yeah. Oh, well, good. This is a good room. And how many of us get a wide range of movement every day? Good. All right. Yeah. Okay. So the more areas of the body become incorporated into compensation patterns, the longer it's experienced, because we're moving, we're having new stress. So the amount of soft tissue distortion also increases with time and intensity of use. So that eventually the fascia starts to change. You get these physiological changes in order to reduce muscle strain, support the compensation pattern. And instead of being able to glide, shape, and move, the fascia is now creating an anchor for improper movement, and it's poorly substituting the stability that the bone would normally provide. So just like you would wear a brace on the outside of your body to stabilize a joint, fascia provides braces on the inside of your body to prevent movement and support compensation patterns. So if you remember my examples, you go from pantyhose to shrink wrap. So that's not a good situation. So I'd like to do something called a fascial photograph. So I'm going to invite you all to do this exercise with me. We're going to focus on this area here between our knee and our ankle, this whole area. So the front, the back, 360 degrees. So as you sit in your chair with your heels on the ground, we're going to just lift our toes up, and we're going to feel what that's like in that three-dimensional area. Okay? So now, keeping the toe up through these next exercises, we are going to straighten our leg. You might have to sit on the edge of your chair to do this. Okay? And we're going to feel where that shifts up. Like this is your fascia that you're feeling. And so now that we've done that, we're going to lean forward at the hips. And again, you feel that movement underneath the skin, maybe in between the muscle. And now finally we're going to lower our head. And if you have decent body awareness and your muscles aren't so tight and you're not screaming in pain right now, you're going to be able to feel how all of that shifting is happening. That's your fascia. And there's another fun thing. You do it on your other leg and it might feel completely different. It just depends on the compensation patterns that you already have in your body. So that's a little fascial photograph so that you can understand where the fascia is, what it feels like, and how it works. So the wonderful thing about fascia being made up of collagen is that it's thixotropic. So when it gets like shrink wrap, it can be moved and heated until it is more fluid again, like pantyhose. So the example is gelatin, Jell-O. It's made from animal collagen. We put the powder in, which is the collagen, with hot water, and it's nice and liquidy, and then once it's set, it's kind of bouncy and moves around a little bit. That's very similar to the fascia that I'm talking about, except we have thin sheets of it throughout our body. So what about releasing these chronically tense muscles? In addition to the fascial planes that run from the head and throughout the body in large sheets, there's also fascial bands that wrap around every single muscle fiber, binding them into strands of muscle tissue, and further into individually shaped muscles such as our deltoid or our bicep. We can use these thixotropic properties of the fascia in combination with general sensory receptors spread throughout the soft tissue and the knowledge of how to activate our rest and digest response through deep breathing, and our knowledge of how our nervous system learns through repetitive movement, thought, and emotion to release chronically tight muscles and reduce internal strain back into tone. So, how quickly a compensation pattern is balanced depends on lifestyle and self-care, which is practice of self-care, general health and vitality, length of time and intensity that the compensation has been experienced, the number of planes, fascial planes involved in the compensation, and the continuation to repeat an activity that reinforces the imbalance or compensation, and any new injury or re-injury to the body. So there are some self-care exercises or yoga rehab that can be done for people experiencing bunions. So I'm going to take off my shoe.
Can you tell us about your bunions?
I'm showing you my good foot.
Come on.
Because this foot that does all my driving, right, in this position, like we just talked about, my tibialis anterior is shortened, and so it collapses my arch here. And when I walk, in addition to deep hip rotator tension, I push off. And so that creates a lot of torque at this joint. And so all of that repetitive force over and over again starts misaligning the bones of your foot. And that's why fascia and muscle tension are so important, because they are pliable and they are able to go back into alignment. And so depending on how long that's been, like I said, the longer time and the more intensity, you're going to have more areas that are added to this pattern. So it may usually it starts in the hip and it works its way down to the foot. It really just depends. If you drive a lot, it could go the other way as well. But just recognizing that the soft tissue is pliable and it can reset the alignment of your bones. So I'm going to use my good foot with the good arch. All right, so excuse me for needing to see my notes here. So self-massage activates our parasympathetic system, right, our rest and digest, and the general receptors of the nervous system reduce muscle tension, and movement heats up the fascia. So we're allowing both muscle tissue and fascia to stretch. And it's important that you can do these exercises comfortably, because pain and force are probably going to trigger your sympathetic response. If your large toe pulls further sideways as you practice any of these following exercises, then that specific exercises will not correct or stretch where it needs to. You've already beyond that point of redemption with stretching. So massaging the bottom of your foot with your thumbs or a tennis ball. You can start at the heel, and again, that fascia is creating a brace. It's forming. So we're just going to roll up to our toes, to the ball of our foot. And at the top of our foot, we can do the same thing. So movement, the friction is creating heat. All of that is softening the tissue here. The other thing that we can do is a nice little yoga handshake. We can fit our hands comfortably between our toes like this, and we can give those joints a little bit of movement. Now, if you have places that are tight with fascia, you're going to feel them, because at the end of our feet is the most tension, right? So you can wiggle those joints around. This is where you're really going to articulate these bones here and start heating up and moving those bracings. And then you're going to go from the top as well. And then just moving. Ooh, it's so tender. We want tender but not painful. So then, once you've massaged and you've moved and heated, we're going to do a little traction with each toe, pulling out. And there's no force here. We're really just stretching. We're not trying to pop or move. We're just stretching what will comfortably stretch. Because as we know, repetition of this will build on top of itself. Let's see here. So the other thing is anchoring into the heel and the ball of the foot. We can lift our toes, right? And then we can extend. So part of our arch on the outside of our foot, we're extending down our little toe and keeping the others up and releasing that. And then also extending the big toe, which I don't know that I can do. There we go. Kind of. And then if you really, I don't think I'm going to demonstrate this, then if you really got it down, you can bring the outsides down, the insides up, but that's a whole nother lecture. So if your bunion is unable to support your body weight, so sometimes it's a little easier to do it when you're standing up to do all of these different toe exercises. But if you have a bunion that's painful, not so much. So you might want to sit down and try it. You can also take like a yoga block and a strap, and you can sit on the ground with your feet out, and you'll have the yoga block here providing a flat surface, and then you'll have your yoga strap around that. And you can do all these exercises that way. So you can control the amount of pressure that's going onto your bunion and into that the fascia, and opening up those areas that have gotten tight and shrink wrapped. So yeah. Any questions? Back on.
What was the word that you said to describe fascia? Was it thixotropic or thixotropic? What was the word?
I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's thixotropic.
Thixotropic. Is that spelled with an X?
Yeah, TH. Here, let me read it. THIXOTROPIC. Yeah. Any other questions?
Good. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you.
She's will learn a lot.
Yeah.
Huh. I learned so much from these
Wow.
because I know nothing about any of that anyway. So
I got lots of notes.
I know I took a couple too that was really kind of cool. Yeah.
So my name's Paul, for the couple people that don't know. Well, I guess Jesse's the only one I haven't met yet.
Yeah.
But that was awesome.
Really?
Shaky, but good. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
You're good. Well, you were doing it for two of you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you did awesome.
I mean, we're bring you on our Monday show. We've been doing it for 3 years, so we're old hats at talking now.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was great what you presented, and especially since, we have all these massage therapists and clinicians here. And then for all the people that have been watching too, when you talk about a lot of these things that we're going to teach here, how to do biotouch with it, even talking about the muscle and the stress, let me show you, just because you talk about it. This is our stress cycle. So we did some research with Dr. Stevenson in Texas, and she talked about all the stressors in our life. And it's everything. You get up in the morning, you get on Pima, it's a stressor. You drive a car, you listen about bunions, you get stressed out wondering if you got them. So there's a lot of stressors. And anyhow, what she showed is how that creates all these chronic problems. And she found that if you put BioTouch into that stress cycle, you actually create healthy aging, a raise in interleukin-12 levels, a change in the cortisol levels, a whole stress reduction. We talk about it all the time. It's sort of like one of the best meditations I've ever done. And I've done a lot of meditations because it's like an open eye, present meditation. You're with another human being because we touch right on the skin. So let's take these two fingers and reach over and touch somebody real lightly on the skin.
Randy's
you wanna
way
come
over
sit over here?
there. Jess is way over there. There you go. Yeah. There you go.
So that is BioTouch.
Very light.
And Bev and I just love constantly going over it. And a lot of what you talked about will show when we teach the points, because you all got this little workbook. And this is a quick, easy to approach bunions with, which is taken from this manual. So this manual here is the entire BioTouch system. And this particular system that we call BioTouch, in the short of it, was created by a mining engineer who lived in Colorado. And back in the days when I was playing a hippie with, ponytails, bushy beards, flip-flops, and cut-off jeans, I met this man in this town of 900 people who was a mining engineer, who big burly chest, tight white t-shirt, rolled up sleeves, chain smoker, chain coffee drinker, ex-John Bircher, loved hunting and killing animals, everything anti what I believed in. But he was in this town helping people with this simple system called BioTouch. And he worked on my back problem. I had a sciatic pain for over a year. And after a couple sessions, the pain was gone. And then I just sort of listened to the local people. And you're talking about very conservative communities back in the mid-'80s. Anyhow, the short of that story, the long of the story is in this book. We don't take a lot of time here. We do talk more about it in the whole training that we do, the practitioner training, 10-hour training. But this is a story about my history and one of our practitioners who interviewed me and how she reacted to those stories. She was a foothills girl, and she couldn't believe I was bathing in the river with beavers. It was like, oh God, are you kidding me? So it's a funny story. It's a real fun, easy thing. If you know people interested who aren't even interested in alternative, complementary, integrative healthcare, it's a real good book to open them up to other possibilities. There are a lot of people out there who even freak out about getting a massage, let alone something like BioTouch where you're touching another human being. It's like, ooh, are you kidding me? So he's the one who created the system. He didn't really create it. It came to him. A lady was hemorrhaging, having a miscarriage. He's spontaneous. He said, I think I can help. And lo and behold, he did these points, and she stopped hemorrhaging and carried the baby full term. And that was the beginning of him just getting these points as he stood in front of people. And when I met him, this was the system he gave me. There was no book. There was scratch pieces of paper with stick figures. So we created a way to teach it. We put it into a manual. We now have a video that comes with it. What you have is the short version for bunions, but you'll also be given a link to download this into an ebook version that will have links to the video. So it's very easy to learn. And are there questions about the history of it? We only have 2 hours here, so we don't go a lot into it. For the two of you that know nothing about BioTouch, and the reason I got involved in I was the stooge to make it public. We'll put it that way. I was hanging out at this place, and one of the old timers, and you had people coming together. I mean, you had the Indians there, you had the farm workers, you had cowboys, ranchers, Southern Baptists, Mormons, and then I was the Jewish pacifist. And everybody was hanging out together in this house. And one of the old timers said, Norman and Carol brought love to the Mancos Valley. And for a lot of us who do healing work, it really is just about caring, about loving our clients. And that brings healing in itself. So when this old timer said that, I was like, oh my God, I've been searching for God and Guru for decades, and here it was in this podunk little town through touch. And so as Bev's going to share with us, that's why we keep doing it. It's an amazingly powerful technique. Just a short little testimonial. Just a few months ago, a woman came in. She had really bad bunions. For years she had lifters in her feet. Her hips were all whacked. Everything you talked about. Her hips were whacked out. Her flexors were, all these terms I don't understand, but, her fascia and her maya and her everything else was all crazy. And she was in a lot of pain. And it wasn't 3 weeks. When she said she had the bunions, that's not why she came in. And we said, we can work on bunions. And I had no idea if we could, but we did. And it wasn't even 3 weeks. She got rid of her lifters and had no hip pain. That was 3 weeks. Yep. Now, the bunion itself, she quit coming. I don't know why, but she quit coming. And, it wasn't like the bunion disappeared. But I learned a lot about bunions, that it wasn't this huge growth, just like I learned today. It's just this realignment of the foot and stuff. And I have seen bones realign themselves. Mm-hmm. I've seen people with rheumatoid arthritis where their fingers started to straighten out. My back realigned itself. That's just with the BioTouch. When you add it with things like massage therapy, oh my God, it's heaven.
It's a perfect match, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's just, the body just sort of opens up and you can get in there with a lot less work is what we're finding for massage therapists. Mm-hmm. You can still get the same amount of manipulation, but you're not working very hard and their body's not hurting with that deep tissue or any kind of trying to move it. Mm-hmm. So that's our experience with bunions. So we're going to go right into what BioTouch is, and we're going to practice the points too.
So in your workbooks, the first page is, say, page 6. And this is from our manual. So we're just going to briefly go over the top. It says, what is BioTouch? Did we give you?
Oh,
yeah, because we have some back in the back.
yeah, that's good.
Okay, so what is BioTouch? Well, Paul already said, as you know, it's a very light butterfly touch on the skin. We touch on the skin, touch wins, or skin wins, I guess, as we say. We hold each point 6 to 8 seconds, and that's pretty much it. That's the technique. That's how you use BioTouch. So everybody can do it. So we're just going to briefly go over these bullets at the top. So it says, the first bullet, BioTouch is easy to learn. Even children learn and practice effectively. And we have seen that because we've had children come to this class and get certified. And immediately, this last practitioner training that we had a 12-year-old come with his dad. And and when we were in the room practicing, I'm like, okay, we're always saying that BioTouch helps us to be like children because children know BioTouch. I couldn't believe it. I mean, the other, people, they were struggling a little bit. This kid just steps up, started touching these points. I'm thinking, there you go, a kid. So BioTouch allows us, it lets us just step in and it's innate in us. So yes, even children can learn. The second bullet, BioTouch is a complement to any healthcare program. I mean, anything. Whatever anybody is doing, any modality, any other health regimen, a diet under prescriptions, BioTouch can only enhance that healing process. So it's totally complementary, integrative, and holistic. This is what we're finding.
And what Dr. Stevenson found out, it can do no harm. That's what she liked about it. She was an allopathic doctor.
Yeah.
And what she liked about BioTouch was it was easy to incorporate without any side effects. And that was a big boon for her because she did a lot of drug work. She worked with drug companies. So.
Yeah. BioTouch has no levels of ability. Everyone is effective the first time they touch. So, we're always saying that BioTouch is a gift to humanity, and this is why. Because this gift already is innate in us to use with each other and everyone. The moment tonight when you practice the few sets that we're going to give you, when you practice together, you're already going to be effective. You will actually have BioTouch tonight, and whatever you do, the body is going to respond. So everyone is capable of learning and using BioTouch very, very easily. And our whole purpose here is to get this into everybody's homes as much as we can. BioTouch requires no special preparation, belief, or state of mind to be effective. And this is really something that we kind of like to share, because just being with another person because you care about them, because you see they're in pain or in stress, and being able to practice something like BioTouch with them, you don't need to prepare yourself to do that. You just need to be a human being who has compassion for another human being. That's the only requirement. So, we know that, Reiki and massage, you go through these trainings and these stringent guidelines, and you have to, operate based on parameters. But with BioTouch, you learn that technique and you're there. We don't have to have a belief system. We don't have to have a particular level of any kind. So this is why we say it's for everyone, because everyone can do it. You just have to learn it. That's all there is to it.
So it's interesting when it says BioTouch has been practiced under a variety of circumstances without jeopardizing its effectiveness. We just love the story of one of our certified practitioners who actually, she's a bar dancer, and she works with these women, and so she's always working with them, and what she does instead of the dancing is she does BioTouch on all the patrons, and that's what she does for her tips, and it's just as effective there as it would be putting us into a room with whale music and tingling cymbals. So, it really is refreshing to know there's a technique out there that doesn't require a particular kind of establishment or energy or whatever you call that. It can really be done. It can do it at the safe way. You can do it on Pima Street.
We have.
We've done it right here in the front on the street. So.
Yep. So anything else I would like to say something that got my attention when Denise was talking, when she said that our bodies are programmed for repetition. And it came to mind what we're always saying about the healing has to do with consistency. And this is what happens. Our bodies are programmed. What it wants is that repetition, that consistency, because then it can reprogram into that wholeness, into that healing. So I really appreciated that, because we know that that's what the body really wants. It wants to be consistent. And when we have a recipient that says, well, how often should I come? And what do we always say, Eileen? I don't know. When should you come? Right? So BioTouch helps us to take responsibility for that, to figure it out on our own. And anyway, I really appreciated that. That was good.
And it makes it easy for you as therapists and things to be able to give this to your clients too. Like, it's hard to give them a massage technique. I mean, you gave some really good tools there, but here's something that just with a light touch, knowing they can't hurt anybody, and you're going to see how we touch around those same places that you were having us move, and we will be working on the hips, but it's all done just with that light touch. and the effectiveness of that you can give to a client or a spouse of a client or a child of a client, to be able to do more often. Yeah.
Is this something that's easy to perform yourself?
Good question. We always get that question.
As massage
And
therapists,
Yes, it is a good question. The technique that we call biotouch is one person touching another on the skin, lightly like a butterfly. That is the technique called biotouch. Taking those points and doing them any way you want is fine and good, and some people find it effective, some people don't. But that's not the biotouch system, that's using the biotouch points. We always relate it to trying to tickle yourself. Since we address the body, but biotouch is sort of being put onto that energy medicine field that's being really worked on and researched. So if it's that, there's a big difference if somebody touches me than if I touch myself. You can just feel that difference.
Mhm.
Because if I'm touching myself, I sort of know I'm touching, but when somebody else touches me, I know I'm being touched. And we've noticed that with people in comas. When they're touched with biotouch, there's this sigh, like they know somebody's there, especially that gentleness that it's done. So that is a good question. Our main goal in answering it that way is because we want biotouch to always be the same as it's passed down to the different people. Like if you get 10 Reiki practitioners, you'll get 10 definitions of what Reiki is. So what we want to make sure is this is biotouch, and then how you use it is up to you. We just ask you not to call it biotouch, but incorporate it any way you want. And so tonight we'll also show you, how we've learned how to incorporate biotouch in. Basically, the easiest way to do biotouch is if you're going to, however you would massage, like however you would do that work, you could do it the same way with those light fingers. So that's how we say for massage therapists, just try it with the light fingers and then get a little deeper. Just start getting deeper and deeper. So, good question.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No?
Well,
Then we're going to bring on our dummy.
so we're going to say goodbye to our Facebook. No?
No, we teach it.
Oh, that's right, we do.
Yep.
I keep forgetting that you guys get to be inside of that. Okay. I don't know. I don't like standing on the other side. How is she? Yep. Okay. So let's turn the page because we're going to learn what we call the greeting set. It's the key to everything. We want to do the greeting before we address any other parts of the body. I guess I will come over here. So this is going to be the only set in the technique that you're going to use one hand only. And you're going to use your dominant hand. So you get to figure out if you're left or right-handed, that's the one. There's only 2 points in the greeting set. So you're going to use the same hand for both points. So, we always wash our hands. That's the first thing we do. And then we give the greeting. And it seems to set up a harmony between the associate, the one giving biotouch, and the recipient, the one receiving biotouch. So, taking the first 2 fingers of your dominant hand, we're going to locate that greeting point 1, and it's in that soft tissue just beneath the breastbone. Just in that soft tissue. And we're going to lightly hold for 6 to 8 seconds on point number 1. I'm right-handed, so I'm using my right hand. And then point 2 is on the back. Try to keep that there. And we're going to locate in the little workbook, you'll see in the diagram, there's a little diamond. That is, we call that the big bone. It's the C7, it's a big bone, right at the base of the neck. When you locate that for point number 2, you want to be 1 to 1.5 inches to the left of that big bone on the left-hand side of the body. And again, with your dominant hand, you're going to hold point number 2 for 6 to 8 seconds. And we're touching very lightly on the skin. And that's the greeting. So you want to do that, even if you're just doing one other set. You always want to do, even if you just do the greeting, it's amazing how that opens the body. So for massage therapists, if you're in with a client and you want to give that greeting, you're going to find that the body kind of breathes open a little bit, and you're not having to. We've had this from a lot of massage therapists have told us the body opens and you're not having to go work as hard. So you can, it's perfect for massage. Okay, any questions about the greeting? Okay, so the next one we're going to do is the metabolism set. And basically the metabolism set is going to help the body to rid itself of what it doesn't want and then bring in what it does. Assimilate that into the body. So we want to use the metabolism set. Do what?
Push her back.
Push her back?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So this has 2 steps to it. And the first step, we're going to be working along the throat, those large muscles in the front of the throat. And we're going to be touching using what we call matching fires. So you're going to be touching 2 points simultaneously on either side of the large muscles. So in the book, you can follow me, workbook, points number 1 and 1 are right in those indentations above the collarbone, right on either side of that notch. We want to hold that 6 to 8 seconds. Points 2 and 2 are halfway up the neck, and we're alongside those large muscles. Again, 6 to 8 seconds. And points 3 and 3 are at the top of the neck, beside the large muscles. So you can repeat any points, sets of points you want to. You know, this is part of somebody's really having some issues. You might want to do that. So that's the first step. In the second step, we're going to be holding, we're going to be holding on the front of the body, and then we're going to be touching points on the back of the body. So we're going to find our whole point. So we're going to imagine a line that runs between where we say the nipples on a youth would be, on that line, and we're going to be 1 to 1.5 inches, 1 to 2 inches to the left of that breastbone, right on that line. That's going to become our whole point. Now, whole point is you're going to be making constant contact with the skin while you're touching other points. So you're going to hold your hand there. We have to turn this around. And we're going to locate those points on the back that we're going to be. So I'm holding on the front of the body. We're going to be working through, we call this through fire, through the body. So in your book, it shows there's a reference point we call the breakover. It's directly through the body from the greeting point 1. It's where the bottom of the ribs join the spine. And we're going to be using that as our reference point. We're going to be working on those large muscles on either side of the spine and below the shoulder blades and above the hips. So we're going to touch point number 1, which is on the left side, left spine muscle, about 1 to 1.5 inches, 1 to 2 inches above the breakover point on that left spine muscle. We're going to be just holding that for 6 to 8 seconds. Remember, you're holding on the front of the body. Point number 2 is directly across on the right spine muscle, staying below the shoulder blades. And we're going to hold that again, 6 to 8 seconds. And then we want to touch point 3 on the right spine muscle. It's 2 to 3 inches below that breakover point, right on that right spine muscle. Now again, you can repeat those points as many times as you want. 1, 2, and 3. And that's the metabolism set. So that's really going to help the body as it tries to.
Push it all the way back to the sketch.
Yeah.
All the way.
You're not going to be using her?
Yeah, but I
Oh,
gotta
okay.
get her in there.
Oh, I see. Okay. So Paul's going to come up and do the last presentation here.
You want to try and go up and down as I.
You just have to-
Try is the word.
Yeah. You can just hold it and move it up and down.
So
Is it right here?
just sort of, yeah, hold it, yeah. So here's where you do a lot of the local kind of work, local work and enhancements. This is probably almost 25, 30, 40% of what we do. And I think we'll also, because you talk so much about stress, you know, there's a set that we didn't put in there, but just doing the metabolism helps the body get rid of those toxins that are in there, even if they're locked in. Like we've heard a lot, there's pain is locked into the cellular part of they're locked in the cells. So the metabolism helps get rid of that. Then you want to get to those local kinds of problems. And so with bunions, it's really clear where we want to work from. Now, one of the things that we teach in our 2-day training, our 10-hour training, we go over what's called the whole back. And on the back, we have all these nerves that come off and go to different parts of the body, off of the different parts of the spine. And what we do teach is that all these nerves that go down the leg come off of this low back area, from the sacrum up into the low back just above the sacrum. I mean, if you know the numbers, you're dealing with the sacrum numbers and the lumbar numbers. And no, we just teach this area of the body is related to all the nerves and all the muscles and everything that can happen in the legs, the lower extremities. So that's what we want to deal with bunions. So the first thing we want to do is, now this is just freelance stuff, and you'll do a lot of work in there, is you just sort of want to start by just working in this low back area. Even if you don't know the whole back. We do have a back set, but we didn't take the time to learn it tonight because that's working on the whole thing. So we can just work this low back and the hips. So that's where you can do matching fires, just putting your finger on either side of the spine. And again, if you're a massage therapist, all you have to think about is, now what would I do as a massage therapist? And then just take those two fingers and put those there. But we can do a matching fire just on either side of the spine, above the sacrum. And then I might do some points down into the sacrum. So now I'm just doing 6 to 8 seconds of different sets of points. Now I might put two fingers maybe just right on the spine or on the sacrum, and then put two fingers on the hip. Either hip. Now, one of the things we haven't shown you yet is something we call sweeps. That's where we slowly and deliberately move across an affected area. Now, all these terms are on one of the pages in that book, but we don't go over a lot. But sweeps is slowly and deliberately moving across an affected area. So I might just sort of come out onto the hips, or I could come either direction. Direction is not important with BioTouch. So again, if I'm thinking massage and I know I want to get in here to this hip, I could just start by just doing the BioTouch lightly, maybe coming around the hip. I might hold in, as you can see there, I might hold on the hip on the front, like if they're laying on their stomach, and then sweep around to my hold point. I might come down into the sacrum and sweep around. So see, I'm just showing you all kinds of different ways. Or I might come the other direction. Okay, now I'm starting to work on the hips and the low back, because as you said, you're walking, once you got the problem, then you're cockeyed, then you're walking worse, then you're cockeyed worse. So now we're trying to work on the hips as we're going down into the bunions. Okay, so one of the things we do is we put two fingers on the spine to the corresponding nerves of that particular area you want to work, and then you put two fingers on the problem itself. So the problem here is bunion. Okay, and it's a perfect class because to me, bunion was always just that little thing. Had nothing to do with anything, even though we always worked on everything else because I thought it was a growth. Okay, well, it's not. So, but I knew bunion because people showed it to me. So all I had to do was put 2 fingers on that problem that they told me about. And I know from my 30 years of training that, well, somehow that's related to the low back. So, I don't know if you can. So 2 fingers on the bunion and 2 fingers on the low back. And I just hold that for 6 to 8 seconds. And now what I want to do is get that hand that's at the low back and get it down to the bunion. So I can either sweep just down the leg, slowly and deliberately, or I could just hold it here and then I could come down and just touch around the bunion to start with. But now we've been taught it's a lot more than that. It could be in the fascia of the heel. It could be up into the leg. So now I'm going to start going a little further up maybe. Maybe I'm going to come up all the way into the shin, the calf. I could sweep around this way. Or I could go down. And then I could just work different ways around the feet. I could do top to bottom. I could do what you were talking about there. I might hold on the instep there or, and just sweep down each toe. So I'm trying to do the yoga shake, handshake.
So how do you do that when someone's highly ticklish?
You would have to go, that's an interesting question.
Because I have clients that I can't even touch their feet because they're ready to jump off my table. So, and I'm very ticklish in my feet to begin with in the first place. So, like in massage, we're always taught if it's ticklish, you apply a harder pressure so it's not as ticklish. This is light. How do you?
Well, the way I find with ticklish people is they're usually really ticklish when I first touch because but if I stay for a while and then I would, like if somebody was really ticklish on their feet, they're not necessarily ticklish on top of their foot.
Okay.
So I would do the top because it's and then I would just go to a point on the bottom and then sweep down each phalange, or that they called each toe.
So you basically would just hold a point on the bottom and then work the top of the foot.
Right. So wherever they're ticklish. Now it's also interesting to me what I've learned about ticklishness. It's usually like just an ultra sensitive area that could be related because sometimes when you've worked on people who are ticklish in certain areas, over time as they keep getting worked on, that area is not as sensitive anymore. Well, I don't know. You have to start coming in. We'll see if we can break it.
My feet,
It also usually means the muscle's very tight there. It's been tight for a long time.
Really? Well, and it's interesting because when you touch it, they tighten up immediately.
Right.
I mean, there's one woman I work on. There's a certain area on her back, man. But if I can sweep into it real slow, where the body's sort of being tricked, I can sort of get over it, and she doesn't notice. She doesn't become ticklish. So there are some but you just sort of feel it out, and you just stay away from the ticklish part because you could go side to side. Okay, and that's going to get the same thing because you could go side to side, top to bottom, and just maybe do or just hold around the bunion.
That's what I was going to say. Don't sweep at all. Just
Right.
You could hold through it, around it, on either side of it. Yeah.
Because I have, clients that you can't even go near their feet. They, even the thought of you, and they're ready to jump off the table.
Right.
So,
Well, and
that's
so,
why I
but if
say-
they have a bunion, it's going to be a little different than if you're just doing foot massage.
Okay.
Somebody who has a bunion, they're going to let you a little more into that because that's a problem area.
Okay.
So, you wouldn't just be doing feet on somebody ticklish. So, but if they have bunions, they're going to let you in there somehow. And again, you just want to work all around it, or you might just start up in here if you can't get to their feet. Even by just working on this and their hips,
Okay.
things will start we were just taught. Things will start adjusting themselves. Where over time that bunion that foot could start realigning itself. Like I wish that woman was still coming in because I would like to see how that foot and that bunion could sort of come back in. It would be really awesome to see. So. Good questions.
Yeah.
Any other questions about the technique itself? Let me just show you something, because the stress set, it's real easy set. You won't need the picture. If you need it, I can get it to you. The stress set specifically addresses stress anywhere in the body. And it's a real simple set. It has a whole point at that same point as the greeting, point 1. And you've already been taught about the nipple line in a youth. That's a great description for us. So if you go from that left nipple to the notch at the top of the breastbone, there's an imaginary line. You just divide it into thirds. Top of the first third is point 1. Top of the second third is point 2. And you just go back and forth 6 to 8 seconds.
Always on the left side of the body.
Right. And that's our stress set. So that works in any kind of, whether it's an emergency, stressful situation, somebody going to ER or whatever, or just overall stress in the body, as you talked about. Just doing the greeting is going to reduce stress. Just doing that greeting. So, any questions about that? If not, let me turn this off and we'll practice.